Hi everyone, great to be back here for another Oasis demo session. Today we have here myself, Matej, the head of partnerships here at Oasis, and Harry, our technical product manager for everything related to Sapphire on
Hello.
Great to have you, Harry, back here with us. I think you're probably more on these sessions than I
am. I think we do a rotation, and it's always interesting.
No, but we use you quite a bit for all the technical bits and pieces that we want to present. Welcome everyone. Great to have you here again. And yeah, for new listeners, welcome to one of our Oasis demo sessions. As always, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions that you might have in one of the chats, and we're gonna try to address them more towards the end of the session. But today, yeah, we're talking about BlockVote. What is BlockVote? We're gonna speak a bit more during this session, how it works, what are the advantages, why is it important? And we're also gonna go through a live demo. And yeah, hopefully we don't get the Murphy effect of live demos and it will actually work. So it's always risky to do live demos, but yeah, Harry, maybe you can hit us off here. I think you have some slides ready.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to run through a handful of slides first, just to give you an overview. So today I want to share something that we've been building at Oasis. It's a new kind of voting tool. So at the moment, it's live on testnet, and if you scan the QR code or follow the link to vote.oasis.io, you can try it out while you listen along. But before I dive in, I do want to give you some quick context around it.
Sorry, just one remark. You know how appropriate this is that we have this session today. Because the U.S. election is today.
Yeah.
So vote Oasis.
It's also Guy Fawkes night tonight as well, where we celebrate the plot to blow up Parliament a few hundred years ago. So I'll get into that. I will get into that.
Okay, cool. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, but anyway, you see, so we started thinking about DAOs and how do we make decisions, and not just like the big governance votes, but all the little decisions along the way, like the temperature checks, the opinion polls, the signal gathering, and we realized something was wrong, right? So we've been looking at voting for quite a while now because it's one of the core use cases for privacy chains, but yeah, we ended up building a tool. So one that lets you run polls and gather signals with configurable privacy options and also token gating. But it's not just another voting platform. We're really trying to rethink of how can we make better decisions together, and how can we use the tools that we have, and maybe there's some innovation that needs to happen in the DAO space, and yeah, this is the direction we're looking at. So what I'm going to cover today is why we felt this is needed to be built. What can you do with it? Maybe a little bit of how it works under the hood, and also perhaps some ideas about what direction this is going in, some integrations we'd like to see, and the ecosystem or the DAO ecosystem as a whole. And yeah, so I think this is just scratching the surface today. So let me very quickly introduce Oasis Sapphire if you've not come across it before. So at Oasis, we've built Sapphire, and that's a confidential EVM that enables private smart contract execution. It's fully Ethereum compatible with encrypted transactions, encrypted storage, and it's backed by the Intel SGX technology. That's a trusted execution environments. But of course, this isn't about Sapphire itself. I think it's great, and we're building all of these tools on Sapphire. But it's the foundation that enables everything we're about to discuss. So, if we think about the state of DAO voting today, many DAOs have been operating for years now. I mean, the blockchain's still young, but we're getting on with DAOs that are 5-10 years old almost, and most of them started on layer one networks like Ethereum. But here's the thing, right? The transaction costs have become a massive barrier to participation. We're not talking about a few $100s here. If you have a DAO with 15,000 members and you all want them to vote, that could not only have a significant impact on the throughput of the chain, it could spike gas prices, but even for $1 or $2 per transaction, that means just putting a single question to the DAO to vote has, a 5-digit price tag straight off the bat, right? So yeah, that's a problem. You might say, well, you can just move to layer 2, and yes, many DAOs are doing exactly that. But think about what that means in practice. Do you really want to bridge your DAO tokens back and forth every time you need to vote? And what happens if those tokens are staked somewhere, right? You're kind of stuck. So this is why so many DAOs have turned to vote delegation, and that in itself creates its own problem. How do these delegates actually figure out what their constituents want? How can they be truly representative? And I guess if we talk about snapshot voting, on layer 1, it's particularly painful because many DAOs didn't deploy with the ERC20 votes token standard, which was often invented after DAOs came into existence by quite some time. And that adds overhead to every single transfer. And of course, if you want to do Merkle proofs of every vote on the layer 1, that's even more expensive. So what's the alternative, right? We either move to off-chain snapshots, but then your decisions aren't really binding anymore. But yeah, there's a lot of problems. And what really keeps me up at night is when you look at successful DAO proposals, a lot of them pass with like a 99% approval rate, and that should make us all stop and think: are we actually making real decisions here, or is this just a very expensive rubber stamping exercise? So yeah, let's think about this for a moment. DAOs have been operating on-chain for ages, and I think it's easily foreseeable that they will do for another 10 years at least. And we're still using the same decision-making process that humans have used for hundreds, possibly even thousands or tens of thousands of years. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just it doesn't capture the social aspect. So if you look at the diagram of someone does the thinking, or a team does a lot of thinking, they craft a proposal, and then the DAO votes on it. And it's pretty simple at a high level, but there's a fundamental problem. So these proposals are what I call high effort and all or nothing. So you might put weeks or even months of work in, then it comes down to a simple yes or no. That's it. There's no middle ground. There's no room for nuance. And what's worse is that we only see the finished product on chain. All of that thinking, all of those iterations, all of those conversations that led to the proposal, they're invisible. So DAO members don't necessarily get to be part of that journey, and they only get their say at the very end when it's too late to meaningfully influence that decision. And here's the kicker, right? So these DAOs are often locked into this pattern. It's either really technically difficult or practically impossible to change the governance structure once it's deployed. So we're stuck with this binary all or nothing approach. But in the real world, we have all of these fantastic frameworks for making decisions. You might have heard of them. So we've got like the Delphi method, the Rapid framework, consensus-based approaches, which is the simplest majority. My favorite one, though, which I don't recommend, is the pirate ship method. So you need an unanimous agreement, and everyone who disagrees gets thrown off the pirate ship, and then we hold the vote again. But seriously, though, if different decisions need different approaches, and most of the real thinking and decision making in DAOs isn't happening on chain. So it's happening in Telegram, Discord, at conferences, or even at the pub. And at the end of the day, you're the experts. You're constantly learning, improving, refining, and discovering what works best. But you're still stuck with this really basic yes or no framework that doesn't adapt with you. So yeah, if we force everything into this yes or no vote structure, we lose all of the richness, the nuanced discussions, and all of the valuable feedback because it's hidden from view. And because these conversations are happening in closed channels or in person, so it's difficult for people who are members of a DAO to meaningfully participate in it. And how can we claim to be decentralized when these critical decisions are being shaped in private, and not everyone can attend, especially so with conferences? It's very exclusionary. So that's why we're focused on maybe fostering a more inclusive and accountable decision-making process. So we need to bring those rich, nuanced discussions on chain where everybody can participate and prove their membership of the DAO, while still maintaining the flexibility of the different approaches for the different types of decisions. And what really surprises me is, despite all of this innovation we're seeing in DeFi and Web3, the DAOs, they've stuck with the same process for years, and we're missing out on opportunities for better decision making. So if you look at the cloud of questions, instead of the big yes or no vote, what if we could break down decisions into smaller, more manageable chunks? What if we could spot the deal breakers very early? And that's before we spend months on, making a proposal that's destined to fail. And also for delegates, this is really crucial. So how can you truly represent the constituents, the people who delegate their votes to you, if you can't easily ask them specific questions about different aspects or, upcoming proposals, what their thoughts are? Right? It's not just about voting, right? It's the entire thinking process. It's about being more granular, thinking about temperature checks, signaling, early feedback. So by the time we get to that final binary yes or no decision, we have alignment already. And so this is where ideally you do want to see 99% of the votes passing, but that's because everyone's participated and hammered it out before it gets to votes, right? So all of these interconnected questions, that's what inclusive thinking is about. It's about making our preferences public, sharing our opinions, finding points of agreement and disagreement, and bringing everybody into the process. So I think this is how we can start to transform DAO governance from a simple voting mechanism into a collaborative decision-making process. And yeah, I know, what some of you are probably thinking is, won't this make it slower? Imagine every single thing being nitpicked. But sometimes, yeah, it will. But being more inclusive and breaking things down into smaller pieces can take more time. But does raw speed matter more than making the right decisions? So if you think about it this way, like by finding disagreements faster and making smaller decisions more frequently, you can spend less time going down dead end routes. And something really powerful, but when people with smaller token holdings can share their insights early, you often, uncover perspectives that whales might miss. So this is the group think of the early token holders, which, while successful, it stops you from pivoting or adjusting and being more agile. And something is also really interesting is when you revisit questions, you get different answers as people learn more about the problem. And that's okay, right? So not everyone has time to deeply think through every aspect of a complex proposal right away. And that's one of the big problems you get, where a huge proposal goes to vote and you've got 30 minutes on your lunch break to digest it, right? So this is the inclusive sort of decision making process to get people familiar with what is going to be asked, not just the final product. And the key is flexibility. We need to be able to adapt as the context changes. We need to do a quick temperature check or deep dive into some specific details, the things that working groups might often end up taking on. And different questions need different approaches, different stakeholders need different ways to participate. And so yeah, it might not always be quicker, but it might be more targeted, right? This is a tool for you to ask the right people the right questions at the right time. Although we do need to be careful about decision fatigue and asking too many questions, because that is a bad thing in its own right. But yeah, as you said, Matej, it's a fascinating day to talk about privacy and voting, as we've got like two rather different celebrations of democracy happening at the moment. So in the US today, millions are casting their votes in private booths for the presidential election. But meanwhile, in the UK, we're celebrating Guy Fawkes Night. So it's commemorating a rather extreme case of disagreement with government decisions. So what is interesting, though, is both highlight something fundamental about democracy, the power of private actions with public consequences. So in a US voting booth, nobody knows how you voted, but everyone sees the aggregate results. And on Guy Fawkes Night, we celebrate a mask that became a symbol of anonymous protests. So I'm not suggesting, we start plotting in cellars and wearing masks to DAO meetings and blowing stuff up, but I think it's interesting that after hundreds of years, we still recognize that some of our most important decisions need privacy to be truly democratic. So if we try a quick experiment, if I asked for opinions about a controversial topic, would you vote differently if everybody could see your vote, or only if the final tally was public, Or if you wanted to, you could prove that you voted, but or you could prove who you voted for if you want to. So it's up to the user to decide. And would people vote the same way? So this is a really strong dynamic where it changes the nature of how people respond to questions. And we might end up hearing from a lot of voices that are currently silent because they don't want to express their opinions in public in DAOs. So privacy is not about hiding; it's about having the freedom to express your true opinion without fear or pressure. But also, it prevents some of the problems with groupthink, with following along because you see that's what the rest of the crowd is doing. So I do think sometimes this makes all the difference. And with our, what we've built is this completely customizable voting system. So you have control over everything on a poll by poll basis. And when I say everything, we're really trying to make everything customizable. So you can fine tune exactly who gets to vote and how their votes are weighted. So maybe you want to reduce whale influence by using a logarithmic scale of the tokens, or perhaps you want a more democratic, voting system where everybody gets exactly one vote regardless of their holdings. And here's where it gets really interesting: is we're not just limited to DAO governance tokens. You can poll, NFT holders from a specific collection, or if you want to get anybody, opinions from people holding USDC above a certain threshold, you could probably do that as well. And the key is you don't have to do it without while if you reveal who you are. So you can select privacy. You can select the different privacy options about what's going to be revealed and what's going to be kept private. So for changing decision-making processes, like for sensitive topics, you might want complete privacy. For temperature checks, you might want to, just show who voted, but not their choices. Of course, you get the overall percentage breakdown of which options are favored more. And for public declarations, you can say, okay, while the vote is going on, we're going to keep everything private, but at the end, we're going to show who voted and what they voted for to keep everybody accountable, especially in the case of delegated voting. And the beauty is you decide what's appropriate for each specific question. Each poll can have its own rules, its own privacy settings, its own weighting system, and you're in complete control of this. So we are looking to build together to make more open tools for better DAO governance. So, Matej, I mean, this is a good point for you to jump in and talk about partnerships and opportunities we have here.
No, I mean, thank you for the presentation, Gary. So I think it's good that you touched on also the ideological, issues or problems that this tries to solve, not only the technical aspects, right? But I would say, so we were thinking about confidential voting in the past a lot already, and we were speaking to many different, DAO toolings, and we didn't get the right response in terms of, that the community or the users really don't care, right? But when we were talking to the users, they said that, they would really like to have that functionality, right? So I think the only way was to build something on our own, that can be used independently or as an add-on, to the existing frameworks that they use. But I want to touch on a few things that you mentioned here. So in terms of, the big decision versus a lot of small ones, right? I think you're completely correct here. I'm one of those, for instance, where I really don't have a lot of time to, participate, argue on topics in, let's say, different communities, right? Because there's just 24 hours in a day, right? So having the opportunity, right, to express your opinion on a small issue that kind of will be tried in the bigger question, right? It's a lot easier to participate in the vote than to try to, let's say, be louder than maybe a very vocal minority in the chat. Right? So
I also see there's a big problem with, especially with delegated voting. Like if you don't have the time, maybe that you're delegating your votes for a handful of different DAOs to a single person who does have the time for this, right? So I know that there's lots of apps that help you manage DAOs and notify you of questions, but to be able to token gate, on a per delegate basis. All of my delegates, here's a bunch of questions for you. I'm going to use that to inform of how we do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as you said, right, there's a lot of work that goes into preparing the proposal that then gets discussed, and then usually it's the same people, arguing back and forth, right? And then it's more, who can gather more support. But if you could signal, before the final vote what you're thinking, right, and remove maybe that bias towards the end, where maybe a way. I mean, you can instill bias already before, right? If you have a lot of voting power, right? But because it's the block vote enables you to kind of also control, how the votes are counted, right? You maybe can have like a different temperature check when you said one vote per wallet instead of logarithmic one that maybe is used in the overall governance, right? Where you could actually get a better, evaluation of what the community thinks. And I think the flexibility with using, any token, not just the governance token, also creates a very, it's a very good feature that you can kind of customize for your needs, right?
So what I'm really looking forward to is if tools adopt this, then we can start having the really spicy realpolitik that goes on behind the scenes. Like, if I imagine if somebody posts a question of, like, do we just shut up shop, or do we merge with this DAO, or something that might be a little bit controversial. And that means that, of course, you have to be careful with, the privacy settings and how you vote, but you can then have the big holders say, okay, I'm not allowed to say this in public, but but I think we should do this, right? And you're not sure who.
Which one I can see, should we turn on the fees for uni token, right?
I mean, there's a lot of DAOs at the moment that maybe they get a couple of proposals per month or once per year, but they're basically inactive. How can we start to rekindle the DAOs that are dead? Where I think that the main point for me is you don't have to put a proposal through to say, let's enable private voting, right? This is an app that works on the side with any of the existing DAOs, any of the existing tokens. So you can, let's go through the demo and show, like, how do I set up a vote for Chainlink, right?
Exactly.
So I've got my browser here. If you go to vote.oasis.io, I have my thing here. I've got gas on testnet, so I'm going to go create a poll. So, should we sell Chainlink to Oracle? I think that would be great because Sergey needs a new yacht. Yes. Yes. No. So I'm just, skewing the vote a little bit, right? So I'm going to create a hidden poll. So this doesn't show up in like the public list of polls because I only want this to be accessible to a few people. So I'm going to also say token snapshot voting. So on the Ethereum mainnet, here I've got my test account here. I've got a Chainlink token. So we go copy the contract address for that token. I put it in here. It does some work behind the scenes, and it shows you it's an ERC20 token. So if you selected an NFT, it would show it's an NFT. Also, it's a Chainlink token, and the symbol's link. And then for my wallet address, I'm going to put in my test account here, and it will go and fetch the balance that you have of that token. So behind the scenes, we are doing like Patricia Merkle tree proofs. We're directly getting proofs from the contract storage. So we do need a test account that has a positive balance to figure out some of the internal details, like which storage slot exists in, and then the token weight. So let's do the logarithmic token distribution. And I'm going to make
you're a link whale, so better to have the logarithm.
I'm going to make this gas free as well, right? So this is a huge thing that I completely forgot to cover, which is, if you want to increase participation, you can pay for people's gas. So they don't need to have any gas at all on Sapphire, right? You can create the poll, You can give them the link, and as long as they can sign with their Web3 wallet like MetaMask, then that's all that's necessary. So I'm going to fund it with one row's worth of gas. Go to next. So here's the customizability, right? So when the results come in, I want to show only the winning percentages. So it's going to show like the percentage of votes that went towards the winning answer. Of course, it's all scaled logarithmically. And I'm going to make that expire in 1 day. So you create the poll. And this is where I pray to the demo gods and hope everything works. There we go. And my MetaMask has popped up, so I'm going to go create the poll there. The problem is here, I'm creating a poll that I can't vote on. So I don't have any link tokens in the account in this browser. And of course, it does take about 5 or 6 seconds for the poll to create, but there we go, it's been created. And see, I can't vote on this because I don't have the right permissions. But I can open up my other browser, which does have some link tokens. And of course, I don't have any gas on this account. So I'm showing that, look, the other account has funded some gas. I'm going to go, should we sell Chainlink to Oracle? Yes. This is Larry Ellison's Oracle Corporation, by the way. And then what we're doing here is we're signing using EIP 712. We're signing, what kind of vote we're doing. So choice 1 for this proposal for this account. Confirm that. And it should be going through. Is this where? Yeah, it will take about 7 or 8 seconds. So yeah, you can see that we've got gasless voting enable, and it's got one gas there. Just double check the debug console.
You almost got through the whole thing.
Ooh. Let's see. Is this going to go through? That's the question.
Yes.
No, it hasn't gone through, unfortunately. Oh. We have a problem. So Houston, we have a problem, which is the demo's not going to work today. Oh, that's just my luck. That's my luck. Okay. So yeah, let's revisit this. There's some little bits and pieces that we still need to look at. I assure you, it did work yesterday, and I should have recorded a video of this. But yeah, let's go back to the discussion.
No, but yeah, this is not yet on mainnet, so it's still on testnet. So we're just ironing out the final details, as it always is. Crypto always has a lot of moving parts. So we're gonna have to iron out. But I think the viewers got the gist of it. All the customizability features that they have here with this. I think it's really can help with any governance model. Or it's just, I'm not sure if doodle, surveys or polls are popular worldwide, but here in Europe, they're used quite frequently if you want to see, what date, fits a lot of people to meet up or something like that. And you could do this on chain. It's not just limited to government. It's just surveying, polling, random stuff, that you can do. And it kind of targets, the more the crypto community, because you do need a MetaMask account or any other Web3 wallet that's supported, right? But I think it goes.
So we do have whitelists as well, right? So I'll go quickly through like some of the functionality we have in the back end. So we've got a bunch of different access control methods, and these are all pluggable. So you can we can do the token gating, so you can say a specific token on a specific chain. In this example, it was Link, but it could be anything else. It could be USDC, it could be NFTs, it could be governance tokens, it could even be staked governance tokens, right? So this is unlocking the people who've staked their governance token so they can vote when normally they wouldn't be able to, right? So how do we get these people's voices heard? And because it's pluggable, that means that you can deploy a new smart contract that performs access control and then use it from then on, right? So this isn't functionality that's fixed in stone. This is plug and play, customizable, whatever you want to do, right? Some of the functionality is like baked into the protocol. So like the privacy options, that's all baked in for various reasons, and the time limit as well. It's just some basic stuff we needed. And this is all open source. You can go to github.com/oasisprotocol/dApp-BlockVote. And just to give you like a quick example, so we've got the poll manager. So this is the app, the smart contract that you create polls through. Then that creates an infinite number of polls. So you can create as many as you want with various different settings. You can control who's allowed to deploy to create polls. So if you do want to deploy your own instance of this, you can have much more fine-grained control over who's allowed to even create polls in the first place. And of course, the pluggable ACL, so it follows a poll interface. And the poll interface, that you basically get some callbacks, right? So when the poll's created, it calls the ACL and says, hey, I created a poll. When the poll's closed or destroyed, you also get a callback. And the most important thing is, so can a user vote on the poll? And that allows you to pass in extra data. So the way we're doing cross-chain voting is we're getting the proof, and we're passing in as extra data to the ACL. And of course, the can vote on poll returns the weight as well. So you can decide whichever weighting scheme you want. You could have multiple tokens, you could have some kind of quadratic voting, that kind of thing. And for the cross-chain stuff, so we're using ETH get proof behind the scenes. So for that, you do need to have an archive node. And public RPCs like Infura support ETH get proof for most of the chains, but others like Alchemy don't, right? So if you're trying to do these trustless cross-chain proofs, it does matter which RPC provider you use, or you might have to run your own Ethereum nodes, for example. So anyway, yeah, we can prove that a block matches its hash. We can prove that an account exists within the block. And then you can then prove that some value in storage exists within that account. And so it's a quick diagram, and we're running through like the different contracts. So this is, of course, if you want to see more details, you can go and check the repo out. But in the example here, so in the contract, we have a mapping, which is the token balance of the user. And all we're doing is we're saying in this contract, this block, this mapping has this address mapped to that value. And and that's how we're doing snapshot voting. So, and of course, with privacy on Sapphire, you can do encrypted call data and transactions. You've got private storage and contracts, and now you've got private cross-chain proofs. And the only problem is, like on Sapphire, it's all private, but the RPC server can see which storage value you're trying to retrieve. So this is one of the problems with privacy. If you have a privacy bubble, there might be things outside of the privacy bubble, like infrastructure you rely on, that can give away information. Of course, with voting, it's not that high stakes for an opinion poll, and someone's probably not going to be monitoring or have any way to exploit that information. But in other situations, it can have a big impact. So yeah, please check out the app. It was working yesterday, and it's I'm not having a favorable opinion of the gods at the moment. But we also have the source code is on GitHub, so please check that out. You can fork it, fork the contracts. It's under a very permissive license that allows you to use as whatever you want to use with it. Just you can't use the Oasis trademark as part of it. And yeah, that's the end of what I have to say.
Thank you, Harry. Yeah, I mean, even the technical details, I think, are helpful to better understand what's happening in the back. When you were talking about how things are done, are there any upcoming features that you can share, or and already have any ideas how to make a V2 out of this?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things that we're thinking about. Like at the moment, one of the problems is we're trying to make the app do everything, and so it's very flexible. It's in a very raw state. We've got like a couple of different places it might be used in. But really, if I think it would be good to see this integrated with some projects and really honed and made super efficient from a like a UX perspective. So ideally, if you have a website for a DAO or an app that lists DAOs, to be able to show proposals for the DAO, to be able to have one-click voting with signing, very tightly integrated. So with that, most of the UI options can disappear and go behind the scenes, and that's what I'd like to see. So this is why let's try to get some innovation in private voting. So I don't think the tools out there do what we want, or at least not what I want. And you've also got a handful of other companies that they spent millions on ZK research over years, and haven't got the flexibility, and they're still trying to do private voting, and even then, it's not integrated super smoothly with the apps that I'm using to vote from. I think that the next part is, is there like we have quadratic voting, where you have like a budget of how to spread the votes out, and but maybe there are like ranked choice, or I'm wary of it being too complicated. Like, can we overcomplicate voting? Like, I think a binary yes or no is too simple because it completely changes the question into a yes or no question. I mean, a lot of DAO platforms don't even let you choose what the answer is. It's fixed as yes or no. You can't even make more interesting questions like sausages or baked beans. It's do you like sausages? Yes. Or do you like baked beans? No. Right.
Yeah.
Um.
I would
So
say
yeah.
I got the message, between the lines, and we will work on getting some partners and integrations. This is definitely, it's going to help to make a better case for private voting and its capabilities, right? So PD is going to get on that for sure. But as you said, right, how complicated do we want to make it? Maybe, the product that we run can be sort of a bit more simple, and then we can help out bigger DAOs, bigger governance toolings, to integrate it and then add features to it, right? That would be more comprehensive for those specific use cases that they need, right? So
I think at the end of the day, though, this is like a very small proof of concept project. So we're trying to show like our ethos at Oasis. Like let's push some boundaries. Let's show what we can do as a platform. Let's show how easy it is, right? So in the time it took to develop this, we've gone 10 different features beyond what most other people can do at the moment, and it was honestly, the smart contracts are really simple. This is not complicated stuff. It's just solidity.
Well, it's simple on Sapphire because it enables that, right? If you'd be doing this on the other chain, it would be complicated as hell.
Yeah. Or either that, or you'd end up going for an off-chain solution, which then you have problems with accountability and
I mean, the on-chain privacy really helps here, to enable all this, and I think potentially, this can also be used in our community. If you want to check the temperature of some stuff, it's always nice to have some community feedback. So I think this is a great product to also do that, right? Get some ideas, get some feedback from our community. But we're already at 40 minutes, so maybe it's time for us to wrap up. Any last thoughts on BlockVote from you, Terry?
I don't know. I think it's always a case of who are the right people to talk to. With if you talk to someone who's been stuck with these huge proposals, and maybe once a month you go, well, I can't really object to this, so I'm just going to click yes, otherwise I'm going to hold everything up, right? If we can start talking to people who are fed up with that kind of voting, right? And let's invigorate some DAOs with maybe a different way of thinking, or try to speed this up a bit. I think when people see slightly different approaches, sure, it might not be as slick and as refined as it could be, but I want ideas to come, right? It's not democracy, you can have a totalitarian, authoritarian DAO, right? But that still means you can get informed opinions about what your, the people you trust, right, to give you advice,
Yeah.
So it's everything, and I think it's maybe next year will be the year of DAOs again.
Hopefully. I mean, I don't think we really had like a proper. I mean, we had a lot of DAOs, right? But I don't know how much those DAOs were able to actually influence, some decisions in the right direction. So yeah, hopefully we get a second run at it next year. But yeah, I think DevCon will be a good opportunity to meet those people, So
yep. I forgot we're going to be at ETH Global, so we're sponsoring the hackathon at ETH Global. So I think that's the 15th of November that starts.
Yeah, 15th to 17th. Yeah.
Yeah, that runs for 3 days, so that's quite a short amount of time for a hackathon. But we've seen really interesting stuff before. The Privacy for Web3 hackathon has just ended, and I think some winners are going to be announced soon. And yes, of course, we'll be in Thailand, in Bangkok for DevCon, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of engagements at DevCon, so we're basically co-hosting co-hosting the Superintelligence Summit with Ocean Protocol. That's on the November 11th. So yeah, that's going to be a good one, all about decentralized AI. There's going to be panels, it's going to be keynote workshops. So if you're there, definitely don't miss it. You mentioned the global hackathon from the 15th to the 17th. And we also have, let's say, a bit lighter event, the afternoon tea party that's for exec. So that's going to be a fun one.
Is that like the Boston Tea Party?
Let's see
we're on the subject.
What revolution we do in Thailand. But yeah, it's going to be a bit more relaxed. Some demos, some drinks, So if people are there to come check it out, it's on the November 14th. In the afternoon, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. local time. And we also have additional, speaking engagements. I think Marco is speaking at the WOW Summit. So that's, is it World of Web or what's the acronym for? I forgot.
World of Warcraft?
Yeah, maybe. So that's the WOW Summit 2024. And we also have our solutions and integrations engineer, Bernhard, speaking at Hackers Connect, where he's going to present shortly our bounty for the Global Hackathon. And then also we're going to have a panel discussion, I think, with Uniswap and Avail. So yeah, a roundtable actually. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one as well.
It's a very busy schedule.
Very busy schedule. Yeah, I would say if you want to check out again the dates and times, to visit our DevCon website to hear all the latest, and if we're going to be adding any additional events that we'll be participating in. But yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you, Kerry, for the great presentation and all the.
Thanks for being a great host as well.
I didn't do much, but yeah, I connected maybe a few dots. But yeah, thank you again to everyone for tuning in as well. As always, we're really happy to do these workshops to present to the community what we're doing, what we're building, so you can understand better as well and spread the good word. So yeah, if you know any DAO or any project that kind of relies on decentralized governance, do share the link to BlockVote with them and get us in touch with them so we can see if we can help them get started with BlockVote and private voting. Yeah. Thank you all and have a good day. Thank you, Kerry. Bye bye.